To London now, and Liz Truss is to be the new UK Prime Minister. She's replaced Boris Johnson as leader of the Conservative Party. Tomorrow, she will visit the other Liz, Queen Elizabeth, at her Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She'll be formally appointed Prime Minister. Let's get the latest from our correspondent, Olly Barratt. Good evening, Olly. So she was announced just about 6 hours ago as the new leader of the Conservative Party. What significant reaction has there been? I'm thinking particularly of the public reaction.
Well, the polling suggests that Liz Truss has a difficult time ahead with the public, that a majority of Britons don't think that she is a candidate that they would have chosen themselves. Remember that the leadership contest that she's just won had an initial stage with Conservative Party MPs. She came second in that phase. And then Conservative Party members have been voting, 160,000 or so of them. So quite a small electorate that Liz Truss has been successful with so far. And as I say, the polling nationally suggests that actually she's got some way to go if she wants to become a popular Prime Minister. Now, she has the ability and the chance now to try and turn that around, but it does mean also she knows that she's going into the job with quite a lot of scepticism out there in the broader British public about whether she is the right person for the job. She's of course been elected by Conservative Party members and not as Prime Minister in a general election, but that is how the UK system works. Because she's now the leader of the Conservative Party, she will become the UK Prime Minister. That is of course leading to calls from the opposition parties for her to call an election, because they say she doesn't have a mandate from the British people. But with the Conservatives behind the Labour Party in the polls at the moment, you would think that she won't be minded to call a snap election anytime soon. There would have to be a significant turnaround in polling for that to be something that she might consider.
What's she likely to do first?
Energy. And she's told us that herself. Indeed, earlier in the summer, when the Conservative leadership election was getting underway, there was quite a lot of criticism that it was felt the Conservatives weren't focusing enough on the cost of living and inflation and energy prices in particular. Well, those issues have just intensified over the summer. And so Liz Truss is now saying very clearly that she will set out a new support plan for households up and down the country within days of becoming Prime Minister. So it could happen as soon as this week. There are some reports that she's considering capping energy prices so that they don't spike out of the ability of many households to pay their heating bills as temperatures get colder heading into the British winter. Now, if she is going to do something like that, she'll have to work out how to pay for it. And there have been some estimates that the plan could cost around £100 billion in total. So she'll have to tell us whether that's going to be paid for by cuts elsewhere or by borrowing. But certainly energy and inflation and the cost of living is going to be her absolute number one priority to deal with, because it is the absolute number one priority for households and businesses across the country.
What's going to happen to Rishi Sunak? Do you think he's going to just walk away completely from politics? After all, you know, he's got a fairly lucrative career in finance that's probably waiting for him. Do you think that Liz Truss might want him in her cabinet?
It's interesting. Liz Truss, as far as we can tell, isn't planning to offer him a major job in her cabinet, and it might be the case that if she offers him a minor job in cabinet, he might not want to take it. So we very much have to wait and see on that one. He could end up in her cabinet if she decides that she wants to try and unify the party in that way by bringing some of her enemies, if we can call them that, from the campaign trail, from the leadership contest, into the fold, into her government, to try and make sure that all sides of the party are unified moving forward. Or will she want to pack her cabinet with allies, people who supported her? So we wait and see, and we'll get some pretty quick answers on that, because we know that she'll start appointing her cabinet tomorrow afternoon and evening after she's been to see the Queen in Scotland. If Rishi Sunak does go back to the backbenches, there's some speculation that he might not fight the next election, for example. As you say, he had a lucrative career in finance before coming into politics. Others say maybe he'll just bide his time and run for leader again at another point in the future if, for example, Liz Truss's premiership doesn't work out to be successful. Certainly if he is a backbench MP, he will be one that Liz Truss has to keep a pretty close eye on in terms of whether he can be one of those disgruntled, disruptive MPs from the backbenches who could make her life difficult as Prime Minister.
Today in her thank you speech, she called Boris Johnson her friend very deliberately, and she actually waited for applause after she thanked him for his time as Prime Minister. I don't know what the rules are, but could he be appointed to Cabinet?
He could be, absolutely. I think it's unlikely. I think it's more likely that he also will go to the backbenches, and we'll see rather more of him in the media than we have done recently. I suspect some of those lucrative newspaper columns that he used to have might now return. He couldn't write those while he was Prime Minister. But actually that raises an issue again for Liz Truss, is having such a big beast of British politics on the backbenches, potentially making these interventions in the media. And also there's huge speculation that actually Boris Johnson isn't finished himself with his own leadership ambitions, and that again he might be sitting there watching and waiting and just thinking, if the Liz Truss premiership implodes, can I jump back in and offer Conservative MPs and Conservative Party members my skill set to try and get them over the line in another election? Despite all of the travails that Boris Johnson has been through recently, many Conservatives feel that he just has that ability to win elections, and so Boris Johnson himself may well be looking to the future too. But Liz Truss did make a clear point of thanking him. She also made a clear point during the leadership contest of making party members aware that she had backed Boris Johnson throughout, and that seems to have been part of the reason that she was successful, is that quite a lot of Conservative Party members thought that Rishi Sunak had been disloyal, had stabbed Boris Johnson in the back, had effectively led a coup to bring his Prime Minister down, and that didn't go down well with many Conservative Party members. And Liz Truss has, I think, just today reminded those Conservatives of that particular issue as she won that contest.
And then for us here in South Africa, Liz Truss, of course, was Foreign Secretary. So are we right in presuming there's not really going to be any change in terms of foreign policy for us here in South Africa?
I think there will be a lot of continuity, yes. As you say, she moves from the Foreign Secretary post to the Prime Minister position, and therefore you would expect that foreign policy isn't going to shift hugely. As Foreign Secretary, but also as International Trade Secretary before that, she had been a champion of boosting trade links between the UK and African nations. She was full of praise for the trade arrangements that the UK and South Africa were able to come to post-Brexit, and has talked about wanting to boost those even further. I think we'll see much more of that. She's spoken frequently of her view when it comes to developing nations that trade is better than aid. She wants to boost those trade links rather than using handouts and charity and that kind of spending. She thinks that trade is the way to go on both sides. I mean, China is an interesting one. She is considered to be a bit more of a hawk on the Chinese issue than Boris Johnson has been, so we might see a tougher line on things like those allegations of abuse in Xinjiang province in China, on security concerns, that kind of thing. But broadly, I think in foreign policy terms, we will see quite a lot of continuity, as you suggest.
All right. Thank you so much for chatting to us. That's our UK correspondent, Olly Barratt. Now,